What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's episode of the Arm Barn Podcast. All right. It's been a while. It's really been a while. Just had a bunch of stuff going on in terms of like planning on moving, trying to figure out the whole wedding thing, and just really getting into the swing of things with a bunch of stuff that I have going on. Going to be moving in around 2 weeks, moving in with Nicole. So it's going to be really nice to get an apartment, finally move in together, be able to do my podcast, and focus on stuff that we want to do. She's going to be teaching pretty much full time. So I'm just going to be home grinding, trying to make some money, doing what I'm supposed to do leading up to a wedding. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be doing. That's really what I have going on. I'm really firing up everything, starting to figure everything out. I already packed up a bunch of stuff. So, figured I'd fire back up the podcast and really just try to stay consistent with it. So I'm going to try to be releasing episodes every Wednesday, going to try to record them on Tuesday. Basically how I'm going to do it is if I have a guest, I'm going to do it with a guest. If I don't have a guest, I'm going to just kind of rip it alone, talk about what I want to talk about, and just kind of continue to talk about sports, continue to talk about just what the heck is going on around the sports world, basically. So yeah, with that being said, really, I just haven't had a chance to talk too much NFL stuff with obviously the Super Bowl just happening. It was out here in Arizona, which was pretty cool. It's really, really busy out here. I didn't really check out anything just because I didn't really want to be a part of the commotion, especially going down there like by yourself or something. No, thank you. Maybe if Nicole was here, I would have done that. But yeah, Super Bowl being out here, honestly, just like the most boring thing ever, just because Patrick Mahomes winning a Super Bowl, it can't get much more boring than that. Even though he's unbelievable, like he's the best player, he's the best quarterback in the league. It's not even really up for debate anymore. I think Joe Burrow could give him a run, but until, Joe Burrow wins a Super Bowl, it's just, in my opinion, that you just can't get into that tier until you win a Super Bowl. So Pat Mahomes is in a tier of his own, especially capturing that second one. But still, that doesn't mean it's not boring. Like, obviously he's fun to watch, but I mean, it's essentially what everybody expects to happen deep down, which is the best quarterback wins the Super Bowl. So, I'm hoping that there's a couple teams and a couple other quarterbacks that give them a run for their money. One of those being Jalen Hurts, who played phenomenal in the game. Arguably could have, arguably you could say he played better than Pat Mahomes. So, just I hope he continues it just because, and I believe he will, I think. But the only problem I'm having is, we've seen quarterbacks, like him, not that he torched them in the air. So this is why I think he's a little different than like a Cam Newton, or something like that, to where it may be a little short-term, maybe a little bit short-term success, or like you have a lot of success in a short period of time and then it kind of starts to fizzle. I don't know if that's him. He seems like he's, kind of different in terms of his preparation, in terms of how he's improved every season. So hopefully he continues, torching defenses. And because, Philly's nasty. So that team is ridiculous. So I think he's got a good chance to continue doing what he's doing for at least, several more years. So they're always going to be a threat. But I really just think it starts to come down to, Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow. If like Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets, I think they would be for real contenders. Justin Herbert, if they can figure it out. Josh Allen, same thing with him. But like other than that, who is beating Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs? Who's beating them? in terms of other than that right there. And just because those guys that I just talked about, I would say like Lamar. If Lamar's healthy for a playoff game, I could see him like torching them and like really giving them a run for the money. But if you don't have like a dynamic playmaker like Mahomes, to where, at their best, at Lamar's best, at Trevor Lawrence's best, at Josh Allen's best, they could beat him. Um, if you don't have that, what's the point? Like, honestly, what's the point? Because you're not beating them. So that's what I got there. Again, I think it's a boring win, but obviously not to take anything away from the Chiefs or Pat Mahomes or any of those guys. Been pretty cool to see how like Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey have been talking about the Super Bowl too since then. So yeah, if you guys haven't listened or haven't checked out that podcast, I can't think of the name. I always forget the name, but check out Jason Kelsey and Travis Kelsey's podcast because that is one of my favorites. All right. Basically, I'm gonna just run through and just give my little early predictions for some NFL standings next year. Um, I'm kind of excited about next season. I think it's going to be a really good year. I think a lot of teams like that started off slow this year that I thought were going to be pretty good ended up finishing pretty good. So I'm excited about a lot of things for next year. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence being one of them. I hope he gets D-Hop. That would be crazy. D-Hop, Calvin Ridley, and Christian Kirk. Isaiah Pacheco, definitely one of my favorite storylines going into the 2023 season. Just interesting. I don't know. Are they going to get rid of CEH? Are they going to sign back McKinnon? Are they going to draft a guy? There's a lot of question marks or not really question marks, but just there's a lot of different directions that they could go in. So I'm curious there, but I think Pacheco could be a beast. So curious to see what happens there. But all right. Just quickly, and then I'll move on to baseball because that's definitely what I want to mostly talk about today. What's up, y'all? Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Arm Barn Podcast. If you like G Fuel or would like to try the official drink of esports, use the code TheArmBarn at gfuel.com today. For my caffeine people, there's going to be some awesome products like the energy tubs and the energy cans. And then for my no caffeine people, there's also going to be some great products for hydration. So check that out today at gfuel.com and use the code TheArmBarn. But yeah, next year. All right, let's do this. First, let's start with the AFC East. All right. If Tua is healthy and playing well like he was, I mean, obviously they could be a threat, but like when it comes down to it, I really think it's going to be a battle between the Jets and the Bills if the Jets get one of these quarterbacks that could like make them a lot better. If they get like Jimmy G or they get Derek Carr or they get Aaron Rodgers, if they get Aaron Rodgers, I think they could win it. But even if they got like Derek Carr, I think they would have a chance to win this division. So I'm going to go with the Jets there. That's who I'd take in the AFC East in 2023, way too early. AFC North, as much as I would love to take the Steelers, obviously being a big Steelers fan, I think they're going to finish number 2 in the division, depending on obviously how Kenny Pickett plays. But, they look pretty decent to close the year. Their defense is going to be nasty. They'll always draft well, so that should help them even more on defense. But, I got to give it to the Bengals. So I'm picking the Bengals for the AFC North. Joe Burrow is the king of the North until proven otherwise. So definitely going with the Bengals there. This AFC South, even easier than the AFC North. You got to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is going to take that leap up even more. He's got Calvin Ridley, another year in Doug Peterson's offense, Evan Ingram emerging, ETN another year in the offense, another year in the NFL. Draft hopefully goes well for them. They could sign somebody like D-Hop or another free agent. Would love for them to do that. But yeah, I'm high on the Jags. I don't know if they're competing with like the Chiefs quite, just yet. I think they could. But if I had to guess, they're going to be their division winner pretty convincingly. You always have, the Tennessee Titans with Derrick Henry, but I just don't. I just think they're kind of on the decline. I think they're going to be in a little bit of a rebuild. They're always going to compete, but I don't think they're going to beat the Jags for the division. Moving on, AFC West Chiefs. What, like, that's not even a debate there. If you want to argue the Chargers, I mean, I just there's just no way. You just haven't seen it. You haven't seen it put together. So got to go with the Chiefs all day there. I'm going with the Eagles, of course. I think the Cowboys could give them a run for the money, but Dak just really hasn't proved to be as consistent as they'd hoped. So I'm going Eagles, NFC North. I mean, how could you not go the Detroit Lions? They look like the best team in football, or at least I shouldn't say that. They look like the best team in the NFC. The back half of the season, they were dominating. They were beating really, really good teams. So yeah, I'm going Detroit Lions in the NFC North. I don't think that's even like a crazy pick this year. I think in the past that would be a crazy pick. I don't even think it is. Even though the Vegas odds, I know the odds are pretty good if you want to bet the Lions. I don't think that's a horrible bet. Heading into the NFC South, this is the train wreck. I think the Bucks have a shot, depending on who's their quarterback. If it's Kyle Trask, I would love for it to be great because I have Kyle Trask on my dynasty fantasy team. So if Kyle Trask somehow breaks out this year, I would be pumped. But I'm gonna go with probably not. So you know, the Bucks still could win it because it's so bad, but we'll see what the Falcons look like. We'll see what the Saints look like. We'll see what the Panthers look like. But my take is I'm gonna go with the Panthers. The Panthers look decent. Their defense isn't bad. I'm gonna go with the Panthers. NFC West is the 49ers. Unless the Rams like somehow just bounce back. Stafford's healthy, Kupp's back, everything's clicking on all cylinders. But if I gotta go with my gut pick, it's easy. San Fran. No matter who's starting at quarterback, I freaking hope it's Brock Purdy because that would be sick. But they're obviously going to have a quarterback battle. Curious to see what happens with Jimmy G. Of course, I don't know if he's going back to the 49ers. But with obviously Trey Lance, Purdy coming off injury, all that stuff, not sure what's going to happen there. But I'm still taking the 49ers. So yeah, that's what I got. Early predictions for NFL next year. I'm kind of moving on from the NFL stuff. I'll, of course, talk about storylines or anything I want throughout the rest of the offseason and stuff. Curious about the draft, curious to see what happens there. Always excited because the Steelers draft well. But yeah, curious to see what goes on this offseason. But all right, heading into baseball, super, super excited for these next couple weeks, specifically the World Baseball Classic. I'm not really big on spring training. Obviously, this is the first spring training in the last couple that I'm not going. But just even before being a professional baseball, I was never a big spring training guy, never really watched the games. But curious to see who makes these teams. I have a lot of guys that I played with throughout the last couple of years in the Braves organization that have actually been traded or signed with new teams and things like that. So I'm curious to see who makes the big leagues and who starts to contribute. There's some guys with the Yankees, some guys with the A's that I'm really curious to see what happens there and just kind of, see some of my buddies maybe make the big leagues, which would be pretty cool. It's always more enjoyable for me to turn on the screen and see some guys that I've played with that are good guys. So yeah, probably be talking about that throughout the season. Of course, excited for the Braves just because, I obviously know so many guys and curious to see who makes the bigs, who can, creep in there and somehow make the squad, maybe contribute a little bit. So I'm excited for some of my buddies. I'll talk about that throughout the season as well, seeing who ends up making the team. I've been seeing a bunch of guys getting ABs and getting innings in spring training for them when I've been checking the box scores and stuff. So curious, really curious there to see what happens. I keep hearing something outside of my room and I'm like wondering what the hell is going on out there. Anybody who's watching the video right now. But yeah, no, it's exciting going into the baseball season. It's really exciting. But yeah, no, going to be updating you guys. I'll always talk about that stuff, talk about who's, who we're some good guys that I always knew and were around during the minor leagues and stuff like that. So yeah, super excited there for some baseball to be back, specifically the World Baseball Classic. Super excited there. I'm actually going to be going to USA versus Mexico. It's out here in Arizona. Super excited for that. Going with my two nephews, my brother, and my dad. So that's going to be really exciting. The USA roster is absolutely stacked. I mean, I was just literally going through it here. Will Smith and JT Realmuto behind the dish. I think JT Realmuto is probably the best catcher in the league at the moment. So that's really exciting. I mean, our infield is absolutely stacked. I don't know if it can, like, I don't know who we would rather here. Like, I don't know if there's any other people that we would rather, which is shocking because it usually is. You're like, oh, all right, he's like a good shortstop, but we'd rather him. But I just don't think that's the case this year. We got everybody that we want. So Paul Goldschmidt, Pete Alonso, Nolan Arenado, Tim Anderson. The whole 9 yards. This stuff is awesome to see. These guys representing the U.S. in the World Baseball Classic. I think it's going to be really big on social media. I think it's really going to be big just in the sports world because I think it's going to be cool. So I'm excited to see Mike Trout too. Obviously when you get to see what I think is the best player of our generation, I think he's a top 5 player of all time. So in terms of being able to see him playing something like this, I just think that's a super cool moment. I obviously guys like Mookie Betts too is super exciting to watch. I wish Bryce Harper was in it and also Aaron Judge. I think if we could have had an outfield of Bryce Harper, Aaron Judge, and Mike Trout, and then maybe like put Mookie Betts at second base or even just DH one of them or Harper DH, whatever you want to do. But I think that would be like the coolest version was to have those guys. And then, the coaching staff is so cool. You got Mark DeRosa, Brian McCann, Ken Griffey Jr., Andy Pettit. Michael Young is just a batting practice coach. Imagine just rolling in and you just casually have Michael Young, a borderline Hall of Famer. He may have, I don't think so, maybe not yet. But I know he's on the ballot at least. But Michael Young, unbelievable player. Just imagine having all those guys on your staff. That must be so cool for these guys who probably grew up watching them play. And all that stuff. Our staff is solid too. We have a bunch of good guys. I'm excited. I think it's guys who are going to care, which is good. That always really matters in the World Baseball Classic is just the energy on the team and stuff like that. Some of the other teams are really solid. Of course, you always got to worry about Japan. They're really solid. I'm pretty sure Shohei's playing for them, which is really exciting, honestly. That'd be cool if the U.S. and them square off or, in the championship, or obviously the Dominican Republic's going to be really good too. They're just going to have a bunch of dudes that are throwing absolute fuel out of the bullpen too. You're going to see triple digits from somebody. And so the reason, this is actually going to be pretty funny. The reason I think the U.S. should be the favorite to win, if not Japan, they're always really good too. But if the U.S. doesn't win, I think the team that could win it is the DR. But I think the thing that's going to hold them back is going to be Gary Sanchez. So I actually hope they catch this other guy, Francisco Mejia. I'm actually not even sure who he is. But I hope they catch him and just have Gary Sanchez DH. Because I just, obviously Gary Sanchez isn't a horrible catcher. Okay. I'm not going to say he's a horrible catcher, but the problem is he's never won it like a championship. And he's had so many tries with the Yankees, and so many opportunities with so many good teams. And I just think I personally think that he's one of the big reasons that held the Yankees back those years. Not to blame it on one person. Obviously there's other reasons. But Gary Sanchez, I just don't know if he can win it. Handling good staff and that kind of stuff. So we'll see there. But really excited. I'm going to USA versus Mexico on Sunday, March 12th, which will be great. It's Sunday night baseball. It's going to be late on the East Coast, but I'm super excited. Like I said, going with the nephew, my two nephews, and also my dad and my brother. So I'll take a bunch of video. I'll post some stuff on social media. So if you want to check that out, you guys can follow me on the Arm Barn podcast. I think that's the name everywhere. So Instagram, TikToks, that's usually where I throw up some stuff. So when I go to the game, I'll post some stuff there for sure. But all right, moving on. Moving on through some college baseball stuff. Just wanted to talk some college baseball. I find myself wanting to watch more college baseball nowadays. Attention high school baseball players, parents of high school players, and coaches of high school baseball. The Baseball Factory has a national showcase tour in all 50 states. These national showcases serve as a qualifier for Baseball Factory events. To get 10% off these national showcases, go to baseballfactory.com and use code CoachCalandra10. With my job, I'm going to be sending guys to college baseball. So I feel like, learning about it and really starting to watch a lot of it would be beneficial for the guys that I work with and the players that I work with. I've been watching a bunch of it. Been watching a bunch of these, first couple weekends. There's just some crazy takeaways. There's some really, really crazy takeaways. I'm not going to go into an abundance of detail here, but the one thing that I would take away from watching all this stuff from like a high school baseball player's perspective is some of these guys are freaks. Some of these guys are absolute freaks. I mean, I've been watching guys on almost every team just absolutely drop nukes. There's a few guys that have been hitting baseballs where I'm like, it's starting to look like BESR bats back in the day, to where I think we may see a guy hit, a lot of home runs. Let's just leave it at that. I'm not going to make some prediction on, who's going to lead or how many they're going to hit, but I just think it's going to be a lot of home runs across the board. I think just the technology, and I think also the knowledge of hitting is more widespread. I think there's a lot of people starting to figure different things out and try new things. So when you do figure out what works for you and you start to have things click, there's games like, oh my gosh, what the heck was his name? What is his name? Jack Caglione. I'm not going to lie. I don't know how I haven't heard of this kid. But like I said, really just starting to get a feel for the high school baseball landscape and college baseball landscape. Now that I'm doing my job that I'm doing. I saw this highlight of Jack Caglione's 3 home run game, and then he threw like 4 2/3 on the mound and struck out 6 and topped out at like 98 from the left side and hit 3 home runs from the left side too, all at like 110 plus exit velo. I mean, if you're a high school baseball player, and you turn on the TV and you look at that and you go, okay, I want to go to Florida. If you're saying to yourself, I want to go to Florida, I really want to go to Florida, or if you're saying like this, I think I can go to Florida. Okay, are you throwing 98 and hitting bombs? Like, are you throwing 98 and hitting bombs? Because I guarantee you, Jack Caglione, his senior year, was at least throwing low 90s. I mean, at a minimum, throwing low 90s and hitting tanks. Like, he was at a minimum hitting tanks and absolutely smoking baseballs. When you're watching this stuff, it shows that if you, work in the weight room, if you do some of this stuff, you can do that. Obviously, he's huge. Obviously, he has natural ability, of course. But, I'm sure he's lifting. I'm sure he's a freak in the weight room. I'm sure he was a freak in the weight room in high school, too. So, high school baseball players watch this stuff and actually have, realistic goals. And I'm not saying realistic goals in terms of, where you want to play college baseball. You can try to play college baseball at high level as you want. You can have dreams and you can have goals of as high level school as you want. But, in terms of like, your goals have to be then in the weight room and on the field, things that are going to match those same goals for your school. So, when you're going through that stuff, it's just, that's really what I would take away as a high school baseball player watching these college games. And that's what I talk about a lot with my high school guys that I work with, is just having a feel for what your goals are in the weight room, having a feel for what your goals are, you know, when it comes to those metrics and even just performance out on the field, and know what it takes. You got to be a dude. You have to be a freak. You have to rake to be able to hit and be able to play at these schools. So I encourage everybody to watch a bunch of college baseball a bunch of college baseball. If you're trying to be a college baseball player, just to get a feel for what it needs to look like on a daily basis, because these guys aren't doing this. It's not like Jack Caglione's, never going to have another home run, or it's not like he's never going to hit 98 again. It's going to be every week this guy's doing stuff like this. So as long as he stays healthy, I mean, you're going to see it every week. So turn it on, watch it, and realize, that you got to put in work, and it has to look a certain way to be able to play at this level. So that's what I got there. I'm super pumped because I am going to the College World Series this year. My company, the Baseball Factory, does an event in Omaha. Signed up for both weeks to go out there and coach and see some of my guys in my program that I work with. Super excited. It's a really cool experience. I'm sure I'll definitely be talking about it, definitely posting some videos of my experience there. But yeah, no, super pumped because I've never been. My brother went. I know he saw some really cool games, so I'll get to see at least 2 games. I think Nicole, because it's over the summer, I think Nicole will be able to come, and we'll probably go to a game, which I think will be really cool. Maybe it'll get her into college baseball a little bit more, because I just all honesty, I think I'd rather watch college baseball than pro ball, at least certain teams. So yeah, I'm trying to definitely go there and have a good time, which will be great. And go check out the College World Series for the first time. All right, kind of keep it in college sports, just something that I wanted to bring up this week because honestly, it is ridiculous. Okay. Don't get me wrong. I'm not the type of guy to be like, girls stink at basketball, but I'm also like, it doesn't really, I'm not really that impressed by a lot of, what goes on in the WNBA. A lot of those girls are really good. They're really, really good at basketball, and, they are, absolutely really, really good. That's all, I'll never say they stink by any means. But, I'm not going to lie. Caitlin Clark is ridiculous. She's ridiculous. I don't understand. She is literally the Steph Curry of college basketball, of women's basketball. She is it's like actually insane. She literally just does behind the backs, off balance, pulls up from the logo. I mean, I'm literally watching her dribble around, and as I'm watching the video, I'm going, she's not going to pull this. She's not going to pull this. She pulls it, and it's water. It's literally just smooth. It's literally nothing but net every time. She is literally just a absolute sniper from 3. I mean, she distributes the ball too. She, does give and go. She cuts. She just plays really, really good basketball. And yeah, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. She is ridiculous. I hope she makes it to the national championship, just because then I will watch every round of the women's college basketball, because I will tune in to watch Caitlin Clark. So if you want to, improve women's sports and improve the ratings for the WNBA, be an absolute killer on the court like Caitlin Clark. And I think you'd see the revenue, and I think you'd see the ratings and everything start to go up. But yeah, that's what I got there. Caitlin Clark is an absolute beast. I'll probably stitch this with some clip of her draining one from the logo after she does a step back through the leg dribble and just snipes one from deep. So yeah, no, Caitlin Clark, ridiculous. Really excited to watch her in the March Madness. Yeah, so she was just named Big Ten Player of the Year for the 2nd straight year too. And I mean, if she doesn't go into the WNBA draft, she's going to win it again. She's literally the best player in college basketball. I personally don't even think it's close. So super excited about that. Other thing I'm pumped for, and that's this Friday, is Morgan Wallen's new I don't know if I say that right. Morgan Wallen, Morgan, whatever it is. Um, his new album's going to be ridiculous. It's like 36 songs or something insane like that. He'll probably just be singing about him sitting in a chair in the middle of nowhere with his truck, and it'll be like the greatest song ever. And I'll probably listen to it the entire drive to Illinois in the next couple weeks. So super pumped there. I don't know if anybody's Morgan Wallen fan, but I mean, I just think he's insane. Uh, I feel like it's like, uh, you know, I feel like it's everybody. I feel like everybody, nobody like really talks about being a Morgan Wallen fan just because I don't know why, but I feel like nobody talks about it. But then if you ask somebody who they listen to, it's usually him, or at least they do listen to him, um, even if you don't like country. So really excited about that album. Mandalorian season 3, always a huge Mandalorian guy. I think it's starting to come down to that's the only reason that I have Disney Plus is for the Mandalorian. So I really hope it doesn't get bad. I hope it continues to be really good, which I think it will. I think it has a really cool story, and I think it'll continue to be good. Um, but yeah, that's really the big rundown there. Um, you know, Check out the Mandalorian, so I don't spoil anything. Um, but yeah, that's really it. That's really it. That's what I got. Super excited for that game. Super excited to be in my apartment over the next couple weeks. Going to be super bummed to leave my nieces and nephews here in Arizona. But I'll see my two nieces in the next month or so. Once I leave, the wedding will be a little bit after that. So a lot of things to look forward to. Super excited to see Cole finally move in together, just stop this long distance stuff that we've been at for a really long time. So, yeah, next time I think it'll be, yeah, two more episodes. And then I'll be in the apartment, which will be crazy. It'll be the first time me and Nicole are living together since college, which will be super exciting. But yeah, tune in next week. I'll probably be watching some spring training, definitely start to watch some, I'm assuming there's got to be like conference tournaments and stuff like that. I don't even know if that's going on, but I'll be watching that this week. Hopefully there's some good UFC fights on this weekend. But yeah, Jake Paul fight was interesting. Um, yeah, Jake Paul fight versus Tommy Fury fight was interesting. I thought Jake Paul would have done better. I thought he would have done better, but I also that's kind of I feel like exactly what happened like makes sense because I wouldn't have been shocked if Tommy Fury flat out was a little bit better than him. So that's exactly what it was. Tommy Fury was just a little bit better than him. Definitely controlled the fight. Definitely showed that he was the better boxer. But like at the same time, I saw glimpses of the other way around too, where Jake really clocked him with some good shots. Um, but yeah, I'm curious. I'm curious to see if they do a rematch. I'm curious to see what would happen in that rematch. But overall, I wish somebody got knocked out. I wish they could have put each other to the floor a little bit more. Um, I feel like when they don't swing like that, they're just, I don't know. I just don't like going into a fight. Like if you're in a fighting sport, you like I don't get going into the fight and like almost trying to go the distance, like or trying to go strategy mode. I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a strategy, but I feel like within that strategy, it should end in finishing the fight before the final round. So I'm always curious. Like I'm always curious to see like what the game plan is, what they're feeling out in their head. Like in terms of professional boxers, I don't know if really, I don't know if these guys have a plan. But I always get curious about that stuff because how could you not want to finish the fight? I get it in the UFC a little bit more because there's the wrestling aspect of it and there's like the ground game control and things like that. But in boxing, it's like, when you watch these old boxing matches of Mike Tyson or Muhammad Ali or some of these guys that used to absolutely just brawl. It's like I would even like 50% of that. This generation of boxing. So that's why I honestly almost like watching some of the good rough and rowdy guys over like professional boxing. because of that. Like, at least the rough and rowdy guys, some of them suck. Like, some of them are awful. But at least the rough and rowdies guys go in there and they swing on each other. They're trying to knock each other's heads off. Even the rough and rowdy women's fights too. They are trying to knock each other's heads off too. Now, obviously, I understand that professional boxing, there's a lot more defense involved and a lot more skill involved. But still, I think you should like literally go into a fight saying, I'm going to knock this person out, or at least try to knock them down several times to make it clear that I won. That's what I don't get. They once they like get a little ahead in the fight, it's like, okay, I'm just going to play defense and I'm just going to try to get through the fight and win. Meanwhile, I just like the aggressive fighters. Like Michael Chandler, even when he loses, you feel like he won the fight just because he goes down swinging, he takes hits, he gives hits, and he always has a shot to win. And that's what I don't get about these guys that like don't, like sometimes just don't even just go all out. It feels like they just play defense and they try to like one punch or like get lucky almost. That's why I sometimes think it's rigged. A lot of that stuff, not just the Jake Paul stuff. I just think boxing in general, and over the past, I don't even know how many decades, but I think boxing is one of the uh, most corrupt sports in terms of like fixing fights and stuff like that. So who knows? Who knows with all that stuff? I don't even know if that's true. But I feel like I've seen that, and I feel like people have talked about that. Yeah, like boxing, I feel like is fixed when guys just don't try to knock the other person out, or girls for that matter too. That's why I like the UFC. People are trying to finish fights, and there's very few. And if they are that person, they don't last very long. They get a couple fights and they're not even on the pay-per-views. They're not even on the card at all for the entire event. So that's why I always like the UFC. But I'm not gonna lie, I do understand the interest. I do understand the appeal for some of these Jake Paul, Logan Paul fights, because for some reason it's just interesting. You can't explain it. There's no way to explain it, but it's just flat out interesting. So yeah, that's really my thoughts on that stuff. I'm gonna fire up watching some more spring training, kind of start to talk about baseball a little bit more. But yeah, super excited to start having some guests on. A lot of guys told me that during the season and like during spring training would be a lot better. So super excited. Yeah, I'll probably have some guys willing to come on over the next several weeks, over the next several months, especially during the season. They don't really do much in the mornings. So if those guys are up, I could probably steal them on a day during the morning to hop on here and talk some baseball, talk some whatever. So yeah, really excited for some guests. I have some other things that I'm looking into doing, like possibly getting a professional lacrosse player on the show. One of my buddies works for a team in professional lacrosse. So just like a lacrosse and baseball episode, talking a little smack, asking some questions if they talk any shit in the locker room about a baseball. But yeah, super excited to fire this back up, and I'm gonna try to be as consistent as possible. Just because I've wanted to do it, and now moving into the apartment, having my own space, like really just being able to do things on my own schedule. Not that living here with my brother and in Arizona with all the kids or anything is a negative, but just when it comes to doing this stuff, obviously kids crying, kids being here, you can't necessarily record something and do a podcast during that. So yeah, super excited to get this back. I'm going to be in my own place in the next couple weeks. So yeah, follow everywhere. I'm going to be posting, going to be making sure I try to stay consistent, like I said. But all right. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Arm Barn Podcast. Have a good rest of your day.